Hi everyone, and welcome to Creative Chelsea. If you like this video, please let me know by giving it a thumbs up or commenting below. If you want to see more of my videos, press the subscribe button and click on the bell for notifications. If you need any Stampin' Up! Products to make this card, you can visit my online store and the link is in the description box below. When you purchase Stampin' Up! Products through me, you can earn free products. Check out my current customer appreciation products on my blog. The link is listed below. So just a couple days ago, these wonderful products that I'm using on this card today became available to customers. And so I wanted to share this fun idea using those products and make this card with you. So let's go ahead and get started. So I want to mention before we get started that a couple weeks ago I made another project using these products just kind of as a sneak peek, and I will link that up here in the top right corner if you'd like to go and see that as well. So first let's talk about the beautiful designer series paper. This is called Butterfly Bijou paper, and there are 48 sheets that come in a pack. There are 12 different designs and they are double-sided, so you get 6 different pieces of paper, and 6 divided by 48 is what, 8? 8 times 6 is 48. Yeah, so you get 8 sheets of each paper. So today I pulled out the 4 paper that I wanted to talk about for this card. So my original design uses these 2 patterns here, and you can see what they look like on the back, how beautiful that butterfly patterns are. But today I wanted to switch up the colors and create a color scheme with the pinks that are in the pack. So I'm going to be using these patterns instead, and then here are the butterfly patterns on the back so that you can see a couple of those different patterns that are available as well. So those are what we're going to be using today. So these blue colors, just so that you have the reference in case you want to make it in blue, we've got Bermuda Bay, Just Jade, and Mint Macaron. And I've used all those colors in the ink to make the butterflies. And so you can just substitute the pinks that we're using for those blues if you're interested in that. So there is also another pack of paper. This paper is called Natural Touch Specialty Paper, and it comes in a 12 by 12 pack, and you get 2 sheets. And I've just cut this one down so that I can use it. So we've got like a birch kind of wood grain look that's textured. It does have some embossing on it. And then on the back side, we've just kind of got a yellow texture design. And so you could use both sides, and the paper is just really fun, and we're using it for our greeting here. And then just to mention a couple of the other products that are part of that suite, you have the Butterfly Brilliance stamp. This is a background stamp. I'll show you more about it in a minute. And then we have these dies, and there are a ton of dies in this die set. You have a full cutout that will cut out all the butterflies in the stamp set. And then you have these really beautiful detailed dies, and we're going to be using those on the card today. So we'll talk about those more when we get to that part of the card. Okay, so let's go ahead and start making our card by trimming our designer series paper down. So we're going to start, this one is the one in front, and so it's going to be cut at 2 inches and then 4 1/4, just to go all the way across our card. And then this one's our back piece, and we're going to cut it at 3 inches and then 4 1/4 again. So one of the fun things that this card has is this unique kind of like a geode look to it. And so what I've done is I've taken the gilded leafing and I've added it just to the edge of the ripped designer series paper and then layered it to give it that fun look. So let's start by tearing our paper. So you're going to first start with your 3-inch paper, and we're going to tear from the top right corner, and we want it to come down about halfway. This is just a really organic look, so just let the paper tear how it wants to. So you're going to get something that looks like that. And then you're going to do the same thing here with your smaller piece. So top right corner down to about halfway. So you're never going to get the same tear twice. So just take them both and layer them on top of one another and just make sure you like the way they look together. If there are any areas that you'd like to add more tearing to, you can do that now. So now we're going to add the gilded leafing embellishment to our paper. And to do that, I have a silicone craft sheet. I've got the multi-purpose liquid glue. I'm going to add some of that to my craft sheet. And then I have a sponge, Stampin' Sponge, and I'm going to get some of that glue on my sponge and then just add it to that top area. And then you can place that off to the side. The nice thing about the multi-purpose liquid glue is that it stays tacky even after it's dry, and so we don't need to worry about using it right away. So we just added glue right to the top edge of both of those pieces. And then I always place my gilded leafing into a larger Tupperware to try and contain the mess. So just carefully open your container and then take one sheet and you're just going to add it to the gold. Look how pretty that is. And then you just take another sponge and just remove the excess. Just like that. And if you want to add more glue so that you get more gold in there, you can do that as well. So let's go ahead and do the second one. And then just take off the excess. I think I'm going to add just a little more glue to this one, just because it's a larger piece of paper. Whoops, I'm getting gold everywhere. And so it can handle a little more gold on the edge. So let's add that back to the gold. There we go. Just a little more. So pretty. All right, so those pieces are all done. So I'm just going to place those off to the side. And I've placed my stamp onto my Stamparatus. And I like to use the Stamparatus when working with large background stamps for a couple reasons. One is for the fun technique that we're going to be doing today. And then the second is because the large block that's made for the background stamps is just really big for my hands. And so this gives me better control on that stamp. So I have a half sheet of basic white cardstock. It's just cut to 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches. And I'm going to add it to the area where my stamp is. Make sure when you're working with the Stamparatus that you keep your magnets separate so they don't shatter. So I'm just placing it right underneath the stamp and then adding magnets to the top and the bottom. So I'm working with 3 different pink ink pads and they all coordinate with that designer series paper. So I have Blushing Bride, Magenta Madness, and Calypso Coral. Now it's really important that when you do this technique that you work from the lightest color to the darkest. So I'm going to start with the Blushing Bride. And let me just kind of share with you what look we're going for. So I want the butterflies to have some different colors in the wings, and we're going to go from the light to the dark. And I'll show you how to do that quick and easily with the Stamparatus. So first, just start with your Blushing Bride or your other light color, depending on what you're using. And you're just going to ink it all up. Then go ahead and stamp. And just give nice even pressure all around that stamp. And then when you lift up, if you have any areas that didn't stamp well, you can just go ahead and close again and add pressure to those areas. That's another fun thing I love about the Stamparatus. So now we're going to work with our next color, which is Calypso Coral. And this one we're actually going to use a sponge dauber for. So what you need to do is just ink up your sponge dauber with that ink from the ink pad. And then you are just adding it to the edges of your butterflies. And you just repeat that on all the butterflies. So just kind of in the center to the edge. And you can go back and get more ink as you need it. But keep the center, you want the center to stay that nice light blushing bride color. So we're just doing the middle of each wing out to the edge, but the center of the butterfly stays blushing bride. So just do it to all of them. You may not see all of them on the card because of the extra papers we're adding, but you do want to just do all of them so that they're all the same. Okay, once you've done them all, you just go ahead and stamp again. It's really key that you don't move your paper at all. So nice even pressure, and you can start to see the darker color showing in your butterflies. So now that we're done with the Calypso Coral, we're going to move to Magenta Madness. I'm just going to ink up my sponge dauber that I matched the Magenta Madness, and this is just going along the very outside edge of each butterfly. So once you've done that, go ahead and stamp it for a third time. Nice even pressure on each butterfly. All right, so now you can see all three colors as they work together to create these really beautiful multicolored butterflies. And if you want more color, so like for this big one, I want a little more of that Magenta Madness to show up. So I'm going to go ahead and just add a little more to that outside edge and stamp again. There we go, that's a little brighter. And then let's do the same for this big one up here. So it's really nice that you can go in and add some extra color to those areas to just bump it up. And just a little bit on this small one. Okay. All right, super pretty. So we're not quite done. So I do want to add a little bit of black to the body of the butterflies. So if this technique makes you nervous, you could just do your card just like this without that little bit of black. But what I have here is a basic black Stampin' Right marker. And I'm going to just now go and add a little bit of black with the brush tip to the center of each butterfly and to the antenna. So this can get a little tricky, especially on the small butterflies where you can't see the outside line of that body very well. So you just kind of have to guess and create the shape that you want it to have. Just make sure you don't get black on the wings, and that happens as I say it. So what you can do, and if that happens, is just take a little tissue or paper towel and you just dab it off. So I'm just kind of working that ink off of that stamp. And you could get it wet too if you'd like. And then you can go back and add ink to the area that you want it. Okay. And then go ahead and do it to the other ones. So now that those are all inked up, you're going to add them to your butterfly that you've already stamped. Nice, good pressure. Okay, and that looks fantastic. So now that the stamping is done, I'm going to go ahead and remove this paper. And I'm just going to place this off to the side. And then I'm going to remove this clear plate and add a second clear plate because we need to do some stamping for our greeting. So I've got my Natural Touch specialty paper, and I have the greeting, "Let your faith be bigger than your fear," on another plate for my Stamparatus. And I am going to add this paper right where I will be stamping. So it's going to be over here. And I want it to kind of be in the center so that I have enough to cut it out with this die from the Tasteful Label dies. So I'm going to just kind of eyeball it, make sure that it's got enough paper on the top and bottom. And then I'm going to add a magnet on that side and a magnet on this side. So stamping on this Natural Touch paper is a little unique because it does have a slight glossy feeling to it, and so the ink doesn't get inside that paper and hold it. So it's easy to smear. And the other thing is that it has that texture, and so I'll show you how that can be an issue when stamping. So I'm going to be using Memento black ink because I want a nice strong black ink here. And I am going to add some embossing buddy because we are going to be doing some embossing to keep the ink from smearing. So we're just going to start by inking up our greeting with the Memento black ink. And we need to have a nice solid coverage, so a lot of ink here on this stamp. So then we're just going to go ahead and stamp it. You need to place a lot of pressure so that you can get down into the grooves. Okay, so there you can see that the ink doesn't really get down into the wood grain. And so to get a better coverage, we're going to do this again. We're going to stamp it a couple more times. So go ahead and ink it up. And then stamp. Nice, good pressure. And you can see that each time you add a little more ink to it, it's getting deeper into those grooves. So we're going to go one more time. And press that in there. Get that ink into that paper. Okay, so now you can see it has a nice, good coverage, but that ink will take a long time to dry. So what I've done is I have some clear embossing powder, and you just remove your paper and add the clear embossing powder over that ink color, tap it off, and then you're going to heat set this with your heat tool. Okay, so you can see that that is now shiny. It has a nice strong black look to it, and it won't smear because it's been heat set. So now I'm going to take one of the labels from the Tasteful Label dies, and I'm going to cut that out. And then I'm going to cut out these two butterflies from this vellum cardstock. And these dies are from the Brilliant Wings dies that coordinate with the stamp set and paper in that suite. So I'm going to go ahead and take these to my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've cut all those things out. And I'm going to use the die brush tip that goes to the Take a Pick tool to remove these little pieces on the inside. This is a really great tool for when you have really delicate dies like this. And you can see how pretty these dies are. And there are 6 different butterfly dies that come in that die set. So just as a side note, if your dies are not cutting out all the little pieces, you may need a small shim to go on top of all your plates when you run it through your Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. And that just means to either add a scrap piece of cardstock, just something to add a little more pressure so that it can cut it out all nicely the first time. And I do run my delicate dies through my machine twice. So I run it through once, and then without moving anything, I run it through again. And so those are just 2 little tips to make sure that you get a perfect cut the first time. So I have those beautiful dies. I've got my original card. I have my beautiful butterflies that are stamped and my designer series paper. And we're going to start cutting everything down so that it fits on our card base. So just really quickly before I start cutting my stamped images, I want to let you know that this fun die will cut out all the stamped images at one time. And so that is just a really fun part of that bundle, that stamp and die bundle. So just wanted to make a note of that. Okay, so our card, the front is just 1/8 smaller than the card base, but I am going to start by cutting it to just 4 1/4, and then we'll trim everything down when it's all together. So the first thing I'm going to do is just eyeball an edge here. So right along the edge of the butterflies, I'm just going to go ahead and cut, and then I'm going to rotate and just cut off this extra piece right there. And I'll just cut that right along the bottom edge of the butterflies as well. And then rotate. And now I can kind of get an idea of where 4 1/4 will be. And so it's a little bit more cut from the butterflies than I want. And so I'm just moving it over so that I'm just cutting right along the butterfly edge. And then we'll do the same here. So I'm looking for 5 1/2. And I'm going to just bring that up a little bit more so that I just cut barely the tip of that butterfly off. So now I still need to trim a little bit coming in. So I'm going to start by, let's just trim like 1/8 of an inch off on one side, and then rotate and see where we are. So then I can trim. We're pretty close right there to 4 1/4. So I'm just going to leave that there. And then let's see where we are with our 5 1/2. I'm going to go ahead and trim a little bit off of the bottom here for 5 1/2. Okay, so this is a full card front. And all I did is just take a little bit off each side at one time until I got the 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Now I'm going to add these 2 pieces, and then we'll trim it again. So to add these pieces, you can either use a liquid glue or some Stampin' Seal. I'm just going to start with some Stampin' Seal right along the bottom edge and then right along the top, and line it up with the bottom part of the butterflies. And then do the same with this one, and a little bit here at the top, and then just line it up right there with the bottom. Okay, so the reason we cut everything just a little big is so that now we can cut and trim all of these pieces together. So we're just going to start. So we want it to be 4 1/8 when we're done. So we're just going to trim a 1/16 of an inch off on all sides. So then rotate to the other side, and now it should be 4 1/8. And when I trim, I do want to trim from the thickest part to the thinnest part so that I don't rip my paper if I was trimming towards those other pieces. And now I'm going to trim again. We're going to trim to 5 3/8. So I'm going to start by removing a 1/16 of an inch from the top, and then a 1/16 of an inch from the bottom. So this is going to be 5 3/8 right here. Okay, so now you can see we have nice clean edges all the way around that card front. So now we can add this to our card base, and you could use any coordinating color card base. I just wanted it to be white, so I've got a thick basic white card base here. And I'm going to use my bone folder to make a nice crease, and then we're going to add this with some dimensionals to our card base. And I'm just going to place them in the corners and then a couple in the center. And then there'll be just that little border around the card front. Just kind of eyeball it on one side, and then it should work all the way around. So you can see how it just has that nice thin border. Okay, so I just remembered that I need to tuck in this little vellum guy behind my designer series paper and over that butterfly. So I'm just going to gently remove this paper, just lift it up. I'm not really taking it all the way off. If by chance I tear some of that paper underneath, that's okay because you don't really see it. And I'm just going to place a little bit of liquid glue here in the center of the butterfly, and then use my sponge to kind of dab that around. Okay, so I just have a little glue there in the center, and I'm going to add this now over my stamped butterfly. And I want the wings to kind of be open and free to move around, so that's why I've only added the adhesive to the middle part of that butterfly, and then stick that back down. There's a little bit of overhang here, and you can trim that or leave it depending on how much comes off and if it fits in your envelope or not. I think I might add just a little liquid adhesive in that corner just to kind of hold that part down. There we go. Okay, so that's turning out really beautiful. So now let's go to our greeting. So on the back of this greeting, I've done the same technique that I did for my first project that I used these products on. And again, you can click on the top right corner and go see that one. We're just using a little bit of white ribbon and then some gold twine. So I have 12 inches of this ribbon, which is from the Flowers for Every Season ribbon combo pack. And then I'm going to cut 12 inches of this gold twine as well. It unravels really easily. So I'm going to tie a knot, and then that knot is going to actually stay on my spool, and I'm going to cut away from that knot. So this is on the spool. This gold twine is from the Forever Greenery ribbon combo pack. So then I'm going to find the center of that gold twine and tie another knot, and this knot is going to hold the ribbon together because I'm now going to unravel each one of these sides. So you can just start by twisting it the opposite direction, and then you can also get your take a pick tool and kind of unravel it by placing the pointy end into the twist and then pull it out, kind of like if you were taking out a braid or something. And then you're going to do it to the same thing to the other side. I just have to remove that knot and then twist the opposite way until it starts to unravel. And that knot is there just to hold everything together so that you don't have to then pull it all back. And it just makes things really easy when using such thin pieces from that twine. Okay, so then on the back here, we're going to add some adhesive. You could use tear and tape or Stampin' Seal Plus. You just want it to be nice and strong so it can hold on to all those ribbons. And you're going to start with the gold twine and find the center and place that knot in the middle and then at an angle so that one is going up and one is going down, and then just wrap around to create a faux bow behind this greeting. Something like that. And then once that's down, you're going to do something similar with your white. Match the ends, find the center, and then again, add an angle. This time we're going to make a Z shape. So place your finger on one end and then just go straight across to create a Z shape to that ribbon. And then you can take your scissors and trim those ends at an angle. Let's see. So you'll get something like that. This one I actually want to bring up a little straighter. There we go. And then this can go onto our card just there in the center. I'm going to trim this a little more to remove that frayed edge. That's okay. And did I say we were adding that with dimensionals? So go ahead and place a couple. And you're okay to place them over the ribbon, and especially if it's touching the ribbon and the cardstock, because then everything will just stay in place. And before I place this down, I do have a little hidden butterfly here in the bottom left corner. And so I'm going to just kind of do that exact same technique where I add a little glue to the back. And then take my sponge and just kind of tap that until it's nice and all over. Whoops, now I've attached that to my card. Just gently remove that. And this is just going to go at an angle here in the bottom left corner. And then this is just going to go right on top. I might actually bring that down just a little bit and out so I can see a little more of that butterfly. There we go. And so this should just be maybe about a ½ inch or so from the bottom of the card. And in the center, go ahead and add that just like that. And then this is just really a pretty little element that's kind of, it's not very bold, so you just got this nice little detail right there on the bottom left corner. And then the very last thing we're adding are some of these elegant faceted gems. And my other project used the clear ones, and today we're going to use the white ones. And so I'm just placing a couple in. Let's add this large one right here over the gold, and a small one maybe down in the color so you can see it. And let's do another small one up here on the butterfly. So that's just a nice little detail. And then we're going to add a couple down here. Let's do a large one kind of over that butterfly, and then another small one kind of just under the greeting, just to kind of bring a little more attention to that area. And so that card's all done. So I'd love to know which one is your favorite, if you like the pink version or the blue version. And I hope you enjoyed watching me create this fun card today. If you're interested in getting written instructions and seeing close-up images of these cards, you can visit my blog, creativechelsea.com. Thanks so much for watching. Have a creative day. Bye.